Good evening. My name is Helen Picard. I'm chair of the North Andover School Committee, and I am calling this meeting to order on March 18th, 2021 at 7:01 p.m. I ask you all to rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I want to remind everybody that tonight's meeting is being recorded, and I would ask you to silence your devices. I'm reading the governor's order pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and the governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the North Andover School Committee may be conducted via remote participation by some or all committee members and staff. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found at the town's website at www.northandoverma.gov. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to hear the meeting may do so on their televisions by tuning to Comcast 99 or Verizon Channel 28 or online at www.northandovercam.org. No in-person attendance of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite our best efforts, we will post on the school department website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of the proceedings as soon as possible. So thank you for that. And we will start with roll call. I'll start with the committee, and then I will turn it over to Dr. Gilligan, who can introduce the folks that are on his team. Mr. Teresi.
Yes, here.
Ms. Lynch.
Here.
Mr. McDevitt.
Here.
Ms. Mabley.
Here.
And we're going to Dr. Gilligan.
Dr. Mealy.
Is here.
Lorene Marks.
Here.
Marcy Bacuzzi.
Here.
Cheryl Barzak.
Here.
Brian LaGrasse, the Director of Public Health.
I'm here.
We have George Gonsalves, Principal of
Here.
the North Andover Middle School, and the Principal of North Andover High School, Chet Jackson. And Mr. Jackson, would you like to introduce your team who is here tonight?
I would love to. I am here, number one. I'd like to welcome tonight with me a few of our staff members that are going to talk about the high school schedule, the proposed high school schedule later on. Math teacher and NADA co-president Lisa Rasnan.
Here.
Assistant principal Scott Young. Here. Assistant principal Brooke Randall.
Here.
Guidance director Steve Nugent.
Here.
And special ed administrator Paula Sexton.
Here.
And I believe that's it, Dr. Gilligan.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. And our student reps, is Eamon here? Eamon?
He does not seem to be. We'll start with Mika.
Yeah, Eamon will not be joining us tonight, unfortunately. Lindsay may be here, but we're not entirely sure. But I'm here, and so is Ethan.
Great.
All right, so
Ethan, can you give a verbal that you're here, please?
Yes, I am here.
Okay. And so is that everybody? If you're in the call, if your name hasn't been called, can you let us know? Terrific. And if you're in the room and your name hasn't been called, let us know. That seems to be everybody. Okay, thank you very much. So our first order of business is approval of minutes. And so I would entertain a motion to accept the minutes as printed in the packet or linked to the agenda.
Madam Chair, isn't it public comment?
Thank you. Yes, that's what it says right here on my piece of paper. Thank you. Okay, so we have three, I think, public comments. One came in through email and a couple came in through our form. So I'm going to start with the one in email. It's from Lisa Rupp at 172 Bear Hill Road. And it says, wow, what a breath of fresh air. It was so refreshing to have teachers and administrators share a positive presentation in which they proudly displayed student growth. Their presentation was clear, filled with meaningful information, and most of all, folks had a moment to share with the public the amazing growth students have had since September. The excitement of the teachers and administrators easily transferred to viewers at home. I was especially thrilled to see Mr. Clark and Ms. O'Loughlin proudly speak of the amazing work their teachers accomplished throughout the year in a public forum. Many parents like us thank our teachers on a regular basis for always being there for our children, helping them every step of the way through this pandemic year, for being flexible and their unyielding support. This was a moment to recognize teacher achievements and hard work too. There is no doubt about it. We are lucky to have such incredible, caring, hardworking, and amazingly skillful teachers in North Andover. While enjoying all the good news of student growth during the presentation, I was so disappointed to have it canceled halfway through the process. I was looking forward to listening to the conclusions from the testing and the recommendations of how to move forward to close the learning gap at the end of their presentation. It is no small feat to test the entire North Andover elementary population once in the fall and again in late winter, compile all the data, and quickly turn about to present information to the public. It was really a huge undertaking and an incomplete opportunity to hear all of North Andover students' successes. Good news is not bad news during a pandemic. It is still good news. Despite all the challenges the pandemic has thrown at students and teachers, there was still student growth and significant growth for that matter. We need good news during a pandemic, and the presentation was definitely an opportunity to experience something positive. Lastly, I encourage the school committee to regularly allow all principals and teachers to to present updates at all meetings, similar to the updates student ambassadors are allowed to give at every meeting. These updates will call attention to moments to celebrate and moments of challenge when educating students during a pandemic. Most importantly, it will give us, the public, an opportunity to support our teachers. Anything we do for teachers will only help our children. It is a win-win. Thank you, Ms. Rupp, or Roop. And I need to pull up the form. And the first comment is from Jennifer Murphy of 50 Brad Street Road. And she writes, "Hello, could you please provide information on the new no trespassing signs at the field behind the middle school? Why are the fields restricted during school hours, especially when the fields may not be in use by the schools? Are the fields owned by the town and not the schools? Will residents be able to use the athletic fields and other amenities during school hours once a new athletic/recreational complex goes in? Thank you in advance for your reply, Jennifer Murphy." And then I actually have public comment here from Stan Limper at 43 Stonecleave Road. Question, how many high school teachers would have to be hired to have no study halls in the new semester schedule? With the new semester schedule, will there be more or fewer electives? And that is all our public comment for tonight. And now we're on to the consent agenda. Thank you, Ms. Lynch. And now I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes as linked to the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as presented in the packet.
I'll second that.
So moved by Ms. Lynch and seconded by Mr. McDevitt. Any discussion? And a roll call vote starting with Mr. Teresi.
Yes.
Ms. Lynch,
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt,
Yes.
Ms. Mabley,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. So that's 5-0 to approve the minutes as printed in the packet. And we're on to the student report.
Yes, so first of all, my internet's being a little slow, so if I cut out at all, my apologies. We want to start with the senior update video, which went out last week. It was the 4 class officers, including myself and Eamon, giving an update on the senior week events that will happen, and this included graduation, prom, and any other events that we have planned so far, and that went out to both senior students and senior parents, as well as other members of the community through various outlets throughout town. Additionally, sports seasons are now in full swing, which includes football, swim, track, cheer, and unified basketball. The football team did beat Chelmsford 35-14, so it's very exciting to see. Additionally, Asian Pacific Islanders Club is holding their 1,000 Paper Cranes fundraiser right now, which for every $1 donated, a paper crane will be hung up in the school with the goal of hanging up 1,000. And this will all go to the Asian Community Development Corporation, which helps build affordable housing and strengthen Asian communities in the greater Boston area. Now I'll hand it over to Ethan.
In addition, the Interact Club Tree fundraiser is ending this week, and the club has nearly reached its goal of 245 trees, so that's very good. In addition, there is a Model UN conference that the North Andover High School Model UN will be participating in called Amerimonk this weekend, in which various high school United Nations will be participating this weekend. And finally, students are very excited for the end of the trimester coming tomorrow and the new trimester coming next week.
And then finally, on the behalf of both Eamon and myself, as well as our new school committee reps, Ethan and Lindsay, we just want to say thank you to Mr. Teresi for all the work that he's done for our community and schools.
Thank you very
And
much.
that's all we have for our update.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we usually have a go-around in case members have any questions or comments about your stuff. So we'll start with Mr. Teresi.
No questions, but thanks for mentioning that, and best of luck to you and Eamon in your next step in life coming up soon. So thank you again.
Ms. Lynch,
No questions. Thank you very much.
Mr. McDevitt,
Just a quick shout out. I really thought you guys did a fantastic job on the Senior Week video. It was great. I know it's tough to kind of do that, without an audience and be recorded like that, but I really thought all of the officers did a great job. And kudos to you guys and North Andover CAM for putting that together and being able to share it. So well done.
Thank you.
thank you, Mr. McDevitt. Ms. Mably,
I was going to say the same thing. I thought you did a fantastic job, and I'm really excited that all those events that you've worked so hard to put together are going forward, and congratulations on that to you guys as a class, and also to your administrators who I know are supporting you. So well done.
thank you, Ms. Mably. And I don't have any questions or comments right now. Thank you guys always for your excellent updates. Ethan, you seem like you've slotted right in like you've been with us forever. So kudos to you, and also to Mika and Eamon for easing that transition. Thank you very much. And we'll look forward to seeing the others some week soon. And you guys are welcome to stay. You're also welcome to go. I know you have many things on your plates that you need to manage. So thank you very much for being with us. And we are not offended if you leave the meet at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All righty, thank you. So if there's no objection from the committee members, I'd like to take old business out of order and move that up, because I know, we might be able to go more smoothly through our events of the evening if we do it this way. So I'd like to go to old business, and I'm just going to give a second if anybody shouts and says we shouldn't do that. Hearing no objection. So this is our continued discussion and updates on our spring 2021 increased in-person learning opportunities. And I will turn it over to Dr. Gilligan and his team.
Great. Thank you, Chair Picard. I appreciate it. There are 5 items for those at home who may not have the agenda in front of them, and it's an update on the COVID-19 vaccine, pool testing, K-5 update, and an update on increased in-person learning opportunities at the middle school and high school, followed by transportation. First and foremost, I'd like to start with an update on teacher vaccination. We were really thrilled to be able to partner with Greater Lawrence Family Health, right out of Lawrence, to provide over 320 teachers vaccinations this past Saturday, the first dose. Really thankful to Senior Vice President Rich Napolitano, who really helped make this happen, along with our State Representative Christina Minicucci for her advocacy. We've been advocating to get teachers vaccinated locally, effectively, and efficiently, and she played a big role in helping make that happen. So thank you so much. It is really a big step in moving forward and bringing our students back to school. The second piece tonight, and I'd like to introduce Cheryl Barzak, our Director of Nursing, Health, and Wellness, and Brian LaGrasse, the Director of Public Health, to give us an update on pool testing.
Cheryl and Brian, if you want to unmute and join us.
So, as we've talked in other meetings, that pool testing is a mitigation strategy that is available for us to use as a district. as a COVID team, the nursing department and the health group, we would like the opportunity to hold that for a future time if we think it's the right thing to use. But currently with our low case rate, we have 5 schools with no positive COVID cases, only 9 positive cases right now, and we've been continuing to hold for the last few weeks, and our community continues to be in the yellow level, less than 1% positivity rate. We don't think it's beneficial right now to be doing pool testing. The amount of work that would be involved to do it, the number of staff we'd need to hire, and the time commitment for a very small return, our recommendation would be to not start that unless we had some increases in cases, or if we thought that it would be the right thing to do at a later time.
I'm going to interrupt for a second. I can no longer see the room where the members are and where NACAM is. NACAM, can you see and hear us? Okay, I can see the room again. Everybody just heard what Cheryl said?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
And I concur with Cheryl, Madam Chair. Our case rate is so low at this point. It's we're at 0.85% positivity rate. We have between 3 and 12 positive cases per day, averaging about 6 as a town. We are still yellow. We'd have to be under 5 cases essentially per day, which we're hovering right around to become a green community. So I concur with Cheryl and the health group that it's a lot of work for very little return on that. So I will defer over to the school department for the rest of that.
Yeah, so as a COVID task force and a team, we've talked about this. Cheryl had provided particularly a lot of information about some districts who have done it. We had signed up through the state, and taken all the right steps, the training, et cetera. But, some other local districts, I think Cheryl was saying they had sent in so many tests and they were coming back with 0. So it was not producing really great information, but it seems like it would be a really good tool to keep in our toolbox if needed.
Okay, is there anyone on the committee who wants to ask any clarifying questions on that or make any comments about that at this time? Hearing none, we'll move along. Dr. Gilligan?
Great, so continued discussion on increased in-person learning. So Ms. Marks, Assistant Superintendent for Teaching and Learning, is going to give us an update on the K through 5 student return on April 5th. We're very excited about 2021. Ms. Marks.
All right. So as Dr. Gilligan just mentioned, I will give you an update on some bullet points here. And we are welcoming our elementary students back on April 5th. So last week, a decision document went out to our parents and guardians of our elementary classrooms. And once we had that data back in, we all met, all the elementary principals and I met on Monday to look at our numbers. And once we had those numbers, we were able to do some more specific measuring and actual desk placement in some of the classes where the numbers looked a little higher, and we had to look at what we actually had. And I'm pleased to say that with very few exceptions, we are able to get our students who want to return to full in-person learning with the teacher and the classroom that they, and the school that they were in prior to moving out or being in OLA. So we can return almost all of those students. Our teachers who've taught hybrid OLA splits are all returning to full in-classroom instruction as well. So that means the 2 teachers at Franklin who are 4th grade hybrid OLA split, the Atkinson 2nd grade teacher, the Kittredge 1st grade teacher, and the Sargent 5th grade teacher. They will all be returning to school and teaching full in-person. We are also returning all of our kindergarten teachers, including the 4 teachers there that we had doing a hybrid OLA split. They will be going back to the ABAC full in-person teaching. We have a handful of students, I think right now the number is 7, kindergarten students who are going to remain in OLA, and we will be hiring a teacher to teach those students. In terms of OLA, the numbers have continued to decrease over the course of the year. So at each trimester switch, more and more students have gone back into full, the in-person learning, the hybrid, and now looking for the full in-person learning. We had about 291 students in OLA. At last count, we have about 110 moving out of OLA to full in-person and about 180 staying in OLA. That continues to change a little bit. I know that some of the families, when they learn that their teacher, who was a hybrid OLA split teacher, is returning to the classroom to do full in-person, some of those families have chosen to move back with the teacher. So we have about 40 students who are in OLA who are going to have a different teacher, and Cara Larcombe has been in the process of notifying those families and letting them know what class and what teacher they will be in. And we are pleased to say we weren't sure how all of this was going to work out with the numbers in the classrooms, how many OLA classes we would still have, and the needs for specialist teachers, but we are still going to be able to provide library and PE asynchronously for OLA, which is what it has been all year. And we will still be able to provide synchronously music and art. So that's great for our OLA students. In terms of lunch, Desi has clearly stated, as has Cheryl Barzak, who checked on a couple of things for us returning, in terms of returning in lunch, we must be 6 feet apart. Very, very important for health considerations. So that's the biggest challenge in our elementary schools, and it's going to look a little different at each school. Right now, we're coming back to school full in person April 5th. We're hoping we have nice spring weather. Any opportunity that we can, we will be outside for lunch. That's the safest place to be. Dr. Mealy has purchased tents, and they have assured him that those tents will be in place for April 5th. So if the weather is bad, each school is going to have a different plan. Each school looks different. The cafeteria at Kittredge is very small. Sargent has a pretty big cafeteria and a pretty big gym that they can use to help provide that kind of distance between students. So each individual principal will be communicating with their families on what lunch will look like in their school. In some cases, we're adding additional lunch times in order to manage all of the students. In some cases, we have small individual tables that will be in a cafeteria. So it really will look different at each school, and the principal will provide that information. In terms of mitigation strategies, we will continue to have masks on at all times. We will be checking more frequently for proper fit. Our nurses are available to help with that, and they also will have extra masks available in the nurses' offices for students who may need them, or a better fitting mask. Hand washing and sanitizing will continue regularly, and mask breaks will continue. I am going to actually skip buses because it looks like Dr. Mealy is going to talk about transportation, so I think we're probably going to say the same thing, so I will let him talk about that. In terms of social emotional learning, we do anticipate an increase in social emotional concerns as all of our students return to the classroom. It's been a while since they've been in a classroom. The schedule, the routine is going to be different. So I have asked Nikki Murphy, our SEL director, to create a document for principals and teachers that describes potential behaviors or symptoms of issues such as anxiety, depression, maybe phobias, how to identify those issues, what to do, and who to reach out to make sure we provide the proper support for those students and families. We also have an SEL toolkit that we received about a month ago. We've been working with a group called Transform Ed for a couple of years now. They've created this toolkit. Middle school and high school teachers will do some PD with Nikki Murphy on that on March 24th, and our elementary teachers will do that on April 7th. In addition, we've shared with the elementary principals that teachers have our support and permission to spend time helping our students adjust and connect and provide that support as our kids come back to school. We know that academics are important, but that whole piece is big and is going to be just as important. So we're really trying to focus on the kinds of things that we can do to help our young students as they come back into the school buildings. In terms of health, Cheryl and the nurses have also created an FAQ document for principals and teachers to support any questions or concerns that they may have. For example, like what constitutes a close contact now? What are the current quarantine regs? If I'm vaccinated, do I need to wear a mask? You know, when I'm having lunch with my colleagues, so what are the regulations and the expectations around that? In addition, the nurses have also sent out information to families regarding allergies. So it's allergy season, and allergy symptoms can mirror COVID symptoms in many ways. So they really want to get a head start on that. So they're encouraging families, if a child has seasonal allergies, to make sure they start the medication early, so that those don't kind of erupt and get worse and create a situation where a student might need to be out of school to be tested for COVID when it's truly just an allergy. So the nurses have been providing a great deal of support as well. So we are moving forward with our plans. Again, we were very pleasantly surprised with the numbers in our situations. I think it really worked out better than we had anticipated. And principals will be in touch next week with families from their individual schools with specific details. That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Marks. Dr. Gilligan, can we have a go around here?
Certainly.
Okay. Mr. Teresi? Questions or comments?
Just quick comments. Say thank you, Lorraine, and to you and your team, and Jim and Greg for all the work you've done on this. We all know here this is not just like flipping a switch on. There's a lot more that goes into it. I know parents are anxious and eager. I will again ask for their patience with everybody going forward, because it's going to be, obviously, it's going to be different. It's going to be a change, but I can't thank you guys enough for making this happen as quickly as we have. So thanks again, Lorraine.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Teresi. Ms. Lynch?
David took what I was going to say, so just thank you for all the hard work, and I'm so excited to see this happen.
Mr. McDevitt?
Again, very excited to see that this coming, and I think for a lot of families, April 5th can't come soon enough. But I do just want to remind all the principals, as there are updates and information, as many ways possible as we can kind of communicate this, whether it's on the webpage, email, Twitter. I think parents are going to be anxious about things like lunch and what happens when my child goes into the nurse's office. And I know that we did all of those, we had all of those guidelines established, but those were when the school was half full, or approximately half full. So, I think just reinforcing all those, I think parents are comfortable with it, with what happens today. But now that we're bringing cohorts A and B back, just a reminder of kind of how all of that happens, I think would be really helpful.
Thank you, Mr. McDevitt. Ms. Mably?
Thank you. My colleagues all covered a lot of excellent things. I also want to thank the teachers. I know it's a change for you as well, but I know a lot of teachers are desperately excited for teaching the kids in front of them in person. So thank you for that, and I'm very excited to see the kids walk into Thompson again.
Thank you. I don't have any questions or comments, but we as a committee have a responsibility to vote this date. April 5 is the date that we've identified for K through 5 to go back, and I would entertain a motion for us to vote on that date.
So moved.
Second.
So I believe that was moved by Mr. McDevitt and seconded by Ms. Lynch.
Correct.
Okay. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, and Mr. Teresi?
Yes.
Ms. Lynch?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Ms. Mably?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So that's 5-0 in favor of all elementary students K through 5 going back full-time in person starting on the 5th of April. Thank you. Back to you, Dr. Gilligan.
Yes, thank you, Lorraine and team, and thank you, families, for your patience and support. It's been an incredible effort by administrators and teachers and staff and our nursing staff to make this happen. So we're really looking forward to it, and we look forward to more information going out to you. We've had a few presentations and been talking about a return to school, and tonight we also have an update on the North Andover Middle School and North Andover High School return or increased in-person time. I want to welcome Chet Jackson, who is here, and George Gonsalves, the high school principal and the middle school principal. They'll be speaking in a few minutes, but I will ask Dr. Mealy if he could click on.
Excuse me, before we do that, can I just, I don't know if we necessarily mentioned this before, but I just want to remind people the April 5th date that has been voted on by the school committee as well as the teachers union. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that will be part of the chair's report, Mr. McDevitt. As
Okay,
well.
all right. Well, I'm here to steal your thunder. Sorry.
No, that's quite all right. We need to make sure we say it. I skipped public comment until Ms. Lynch helped me.
Oh, yeah.
Lisa can speak for that.
Mr. McDevitt, great point. The teachers union, we've been working with them and negotiating with them for some time, and we really appreciate working together so collaboratively to make this happen for kids. So middle school and high school, Dr. Mealy, if you could go to the first slide. Reopening to date, we presented this when we started talking about elementary a few sessions back. We've really done incredibly well in keeping our schools open, and that's testament to the protocols in place and all the hard work of staff across this district and families, keeping an eye on symptoms and keeping kids home when they're sick. And we got to continue with these mitigation strategies and these protocols in place to keep school open. So, next slide, Dr. Mealy. March 9th, 2021, DESE came out with guidance. So, on March 9th, not very long ago, the Department of Education came out and they said that they would be eliminating really the hybrid option for grades K through 5, and schools would return for April 5th. So we're really pleased that we're able to do that. It is a lot of work, but the districts must continue to offer the remote, as Lorene said, who want to keep that. These new regulations will also allow NAPS at the upper levels to continue offering online academy for the remainder of the school year, but will eliminate the hybrid option at the middle school and high school as we phase them back into school as well. And we're going to talk about that a little more in a few minutes. So the plan moving forward, staff vaccinations, as I mentioned, at Greater Lawrence Family Health it was terrific to do this past weekend. We're looking at this time, and I don't want to steal all the thunder, but for North Andover Middle School to return to full in-person learning on April 28th, the high school to return to full in-person learning on April 29th. We continue to negotiate with the North Andover Teachers Association. It's been ongoing, and the secondary principals will continue to share information as they work with their reopening teams to make this happen. So I'm going to turn it over at this time to Mr. Gonsalves and Mr. Jackson, and I'm not sure who would like to go first, or together.
We can probably handle this together, Dr. Gilligan. I'll happily do the first part, Mr. Gonsalves, and you can do the second part, since we did not plan for this one to that degree, but we're happy to do so. Thank you all. We're very excited to have our students back fully in person and to support our students that are choosing to remain in OLA. As listed here on the slide, there's several items that when we get back to continue to work with our planning teams. I know both George and I have met with our teams previously over the last couple weeks. Health and safety, getting the physical room set up is going to be very important. I know for the high school, I'll turn it over to George in a second, a lot of our desks and tables are still in the cafeteria, in the gym, and need to be moved upwards to our academic wings, sometimes the second and third floor as well. So those are three things I know that we all have to worry about. George?
Yeah, just in regards to room setup, we've been discussing this quite a bit. I'm so appreciative of the fact that we're talking about returning April 28th, because I imagine many hands make light work, and we're going to need every second of April vacation to physically set up our building to have all students return. We're excited about it, but we're going to need a lot of time and a lot of volunteers to make this happen.
All right, feel free to continue on, George.
Oh, excellent. Lunch / snacks, whichever your school is looking to provide, that also is quite a challenge. I have to say I've been so appreciative of Dr. Mealy and his administrative assistants, Michelle McHugh specifically, who have really worked well with us, Erica Murphy from Food Services, to identify our furniture needs, because we really want to make sure that we can seat all students 6 feet apart, whether it's eating a snack or whether it's eating in the cafeteria. We're also very much looking at outdoor spaces and how to use those. We're prepared to provide clipboards, mats, creative scheduling and ideas to get kids outside as much as possible. And let's be honest, staff want to go outside too. So we continue to look at that. OLA students, we want to make sure they continue to have a wonderful educational experience and are included in our learning model. The school schedule, we have lots of ideas on that, but we have to be patient and wait for things to be negotiated before we can finalize that. And while I'm talking, I'll just continue, Mr. Jackson, you know me, social and emotional support, we're always keeping that at the front of our minds in anything we do. How are we communicating it? How are we supporting each and every person? It's one thing to get the job done. It's another thing to get the job done in a way that people feel safe, nurtured, involved, informed, and more. So we're always cognizant of that. And we have some wonderful people on the team who chime in to make sure we're thinking about that through each step of the process.
Great. Before you guys take on this next part, I just want to point out that although the commissioner and the state have set the April 5th date for elementary, and we're thrilled to meet, and the middle school for the 28th, what they did announce is that the details and timing of the high school phase to be phased back in was to be determined. And they were going to let districts know maybe sometime in late April and provide at least 2 weeks advance notice for when students would return at high schools full in person. And I'm thrilled of where we are and working with the association, because there's a lot of work to do between now and the return, that we'll be able to have them back on the 29th. And we're really thrilled, as part of a phased approach, for the support and approval by Public Health Director Brian LaGrasse. So I'll turn it back to Chet and George.
Chet, how about I talk about NAMS first and then you talk about NHS? All right. So regarding NAMS, the fact that all of our students would be returning on Wednesday, that allows us to use Monday and Tuesday as our transition days. We anticipate having every protocol, every expectation, everything in place for that Monday, April 26th. And April 26th will allow us to run through that, every piece of it, with only cohorts A, C, and D, like you would normally see on a Monday. And then the Tuesday would be for cohorts B, C, and D. We would be creating a modified schedule for both of those days to provide them time to acquaint themselves, to watch some videos. The nurses, who can talk highly of the nurses, more highly of the nurses in this district. They are outstanding, they work collaboratively, and they're putting some great things together to support students. And then Wednesday, we'll have the full return, and everyone will be ready because they will have had 2 days to ease into it.
Yeah, getting a look at this schedule, obviously there's a lot of work that's been going on by a lot of people behind the scenes, so very appreciative to all the people that have been doing that very difficult and challenging work. In the previous slide, it talked about a phased-in approach as well, and I think regardless of the level, when you're talking about having some students that haven't stepped foot in a school in over a year, which all of our OLA students that have been in there the full year, they kind of fit that category. To have an opportunity to kind of come back in maybe without a full school's worth of people on a couple of days. And even for our staff that could be seeing those rooms set up coming from vacation, also with people still sitting 6 feet apart for those 2 days. Getting those cohorts is very important as we support the social emotional help of our students and our staff that also could be returning to school in these models across our district. So great to see that. Also, for the high school, it looks here that there's a Wednesday traditional full remote day on that Wednesday. So I think just in that we're not adjusting another schedule for that week is very positive. You know, whether we're running a hybrid on Monday, Tuesday, and then going fully remote, it's the same routine we've been following. Even if we're implementing, you know, an updated bell schedule when we get to that point, and it's negotiated upon and agreed upon. I think there's a lot of positives there that set us up at the high school to really have that full return on Thursday and Friday. You know, be able, just like we did at the start of the year when we had, you know, a slightly phased-in approach too. We learn a lot those first 2 days. You have the weekend to kind of process, reflect, make those mini adjustments, and go toward that first full week. And I know we have some standardized testing coming that first week of May, and AP testing as well. So it's great to kind of have that phased approach so that we're ready for those moments at the high school. Thanks.
So before we get to the next slide, which really just outlines it in a different visual way for other visual learners, and we will link this, What's really important for the staggered start for the 28th and the 29th is that on the 28th, some people may say, well, why is the high school remote that day? It's critical to us here in central office that we have all hands on deck to support the middle school coming back together with full in-person, and then the following day that we'll all be available from the central office to support the high school on that day. And because we were thinking about trying to do both on the same day, and that's something that we think is really important. The other part, I think, as Chet or George may have mentioned, if anyone has traveled, it's important to follow the travel guidelines. They may have to test on that Monday or Sunday or before they come back. And last but not least, we're really excited of having the elementary back. And Brian, do you want to just talk about your support as the public health director on the phased-in approach?
Yeah, I think that's the best way to take this. I think one of the things that we've talked about at length was when the teachers that have been vaccinated are going to be fully immunized, and that is on April 24th. So I think that is a great goal to go back to school for the upper grades after the 24th.
Brian, thank you. Dr. Mealy, next slide for the principals.
So we spoke a little to this already, obviously, but we recognize that with April vacation being a lot of the heavy lifting, literally, with the furniture and the desks and the tables and everything else, we also, by having half the students in on Monday and Tuesday before the full return, it really gives teachers an opportunity to adjust their classrooms as necessary if they didn't volunteer to come in over April break. And by the way, many of my staff have already volunteered to come in. And also just to make sure we transition the kids to what they will be expecting. And there's still some undecided things that we'll have to figure out that might be figured out just before April break. So we'll need those 2 days to finalize any last minute details before everyone comes in. For example, arrival and departure, we're going to make a plan that we think works. Having half the students on Monday and Tuesday gives us an opportunity to tweak it if necessary for that Wednesday.
Yeah, George got that whole slide, but I will add in, April vacation is there, and having that phased in approach. And it talks about the teachers can adjust their classrooms as necessary. And one of the things is we do have a great staff that would come in during their April vacation. But one of the things is we do want them to recharge a little bit for that last run too. So, to be able to come in on whether it's later in that weekend or on Monday and come in before the full amount of kids are in their rooms, the furniture is in their rooms, and at the size of our schools, they're going to need that time to adjust some furniture as we go through. So I think that's for those of people who plan this as well, I think that's a nice piece there to allow teachers to not have that stress during their vacation when they are trying to recharge and do their best for our kids across the district. So,
yes, and I would say this is an incredible amount of work. It may seem easy to say we're going to have all students back, but we're talking about making adjustments to meet learning time, to provide lunch, to have all the safety protocols in place, and to do everything the right way. And we're looking forward to that. We'll continue to work with the association, the Teachers Association, collaboratively, and we'll have to negotiate some more here at the secondary level as we progress forward. And then, as George and Chet have both mentioned, and Lorene, communication will be critical from the schools in the district about these different pieces. I know that Chet and George have talked about possibly different videos and all the different ways in which they can communicate. I think Mr. McDevitt said it earlier, that would be really key to reorienting our kids so that they can reunite.
Thank you, Dr. Gilligan. Thank you, George and Chet as well. I think we need to go around and see if there are any questions, comments, or concerns from the committee members, and I will start with Mr. Teresi.
No, just thanks again to George and Chet for working so hard with this and your team. And I failed to recognize earlier, I wanted to thank Lisa and Ryan Landry, our NADA co-presidents, for working, I heard, very collaboratively with the team here. So thank you to the teachers for stepping up and being prepared to go back in April. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Teresi. Ms. Lynch.
I'd also like to thank everybody, and I really appreciate the thoughtfulness and the hard work that went behind this. I know it was a quick summary, but I know it was, each bullet point was like hours of thought and work, so thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McDevitt?
Having been part of the negotiations, I don't think I have any questions at this point. So I'm excited for K-5 coming back April 5th, and middle school on the 28th and high school on the 29th. So couldn't be more excited.
Thank you, Mr. McDevitt. Ms. Mably?
No real questions. I do recognize that you still have some, details to figure out, and those are going to be important for some parents to understand as they let you know what their decision is. And I really am thankful that you're taking the time to figure out the best way to make things safe and keep people at 6 feet. So we certainly, can't do that, and kids can't not eat all day. So the fact that we need to make way for them to eat is critical. So thank you. And this is very exciting. I also appreciate, Dr. Gilligan said this, that the elementary and the middle school, the state kind of laid down certain parameters for that. The high school has not come out yet, but I appreciate that the partnership between our administration, our negotiating team, and the teachers, not waiting to hear for that kind of information, because I do think that while we can't afford to wait, because I think, as been described, you need that April vacation, and if you were to find out the week before, it just wouldn't happen. And so I'm glad that everybody recognizes that and is working to move forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mably. I don't have anything to add to that. I'm thankful that my colleagues were so thankful. We've got the attitude of gratitude here, and that's terrific. We do have an order of business, which is this committee needs to vote the dates of April 28th for return of the middle school and April 29th for full in-person return of the high school. So I would entertain that motion now.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. McDevitt and seconded by Ms. Lynch. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call vote, starting with Mr. Teresi.
Yes.
Ms. Lynch?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Ms. Mably?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So that is 5-0 in favor of full in-person learning starting on the 28th of April for the middle school and the 29th of April for the high school. Wow, does that feel good? Thank you, everybody, for your hard work on all those things. And we're on to transportation with Dr. Mealy. I assume with Dr. Mealy. Dr. Gilligan, maybe you want to talk.
No, Dr. Mealy is going to do transportation, and I just want to thank everyone again. There's still work to be done, and a lot of hard work to be done, but we're thrilled to be able to, set this schedule and get it going. So thank you. Dr. Mealy, transportation.
So for transportation, we will be expanding the routes to our normal routes now that they have increased capacity on the buses to full capacity. We will continue to run them for the year with the windows open, and that is nice that the weather is now starting to cooperate and will be warmer. So we'll expand for all of the elementary students as we normally do and run those normal routes. We won't have as many, at least the survey indicated, we won't have as many riders as we normally do. So we'll be looking to also expand transportation and making it available for our grades 7 through 12 as much as we can. It's going to depend on start times. Right now, the start times don't allow us to run the normal tiers that we do. So if that remains the same, we won't be able to run the same routes we do at the secondary level. But at the very least, what we're going to try to do is set up some central stops that students can get to if they need ways to get to school. So we'll communicate more as we know, and we're trying to provide as much transportation as we can.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mealy. Does anybody on the committee have questions or comments for Dr. Mealy?
So just a quick question. Are we going to add that into the survey? Because, for example, my children are cohort B. I'm used to bringing them in on Tuesdays and Fridays, right? But I have not had to worry about transportation Monday, Wednesday, Thursday. And there may be parents who have made arrangements or parents, have not had to have that concern, but now would need to make arrangements. So are there a way that we could say, maybe you only need transportation on Wednesdays, or, some mix of that would help you in determining routes to try to offer that in.
Yeah, generally speaking, if somebody can ride the bus, and we have to make their seat available at all times.
5 days.
Yeah.
Okay.
But what we are doing, we did include transportation questions as part of the first survey that went out, but we are sending out specifically a very short survey asking people to let us know what they are doing.
Okay.
And that'll give us a good idea. I think it's going out tomorrow, to tell you the truth. And that'll give us an idea of, what we can do elementary-wise and how many buses we'll need and what that might free up.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Dr. Mealy. So that concludes our old business, and we're back on our agenda to the superintendent's report. Dr. Gilligan.
Yes, so for the superintendent's report, an MCAS update, there is no new news since we've met last. Elementary schools will have a window between May 10th and period in June. So they've set a 1-month window for elementary in grades 3, 4, and 5 to take the MCAS, and they have not determined a window yet for the middle school in grades 6, 7, and 8. So that is the update on MCAS, and I know that Mr. Gonzalez will send out information as soon as we get more on middle school MCAS. Oh, and then next, the school capacity subcommittee update, and I will turn it over to Ms. Vitsky Lynch or Dr. Mealy. Either one can start.
Go ahead, Dr. Mealy.
Okay. We think the best update is to go over the timeline. So, as I've said before, we've been working on the different aspects of bringing forward to the school committee as much information as we can regarding the projects and the models that might be options to consider and for the school committee to make a final recommendation on. The timeline looks like this. We are going to meet on March 24th to finalize a survey, another survey that will be going out. And basically, what we intend to do with the survey is educate the public as much as we can. We're going to provide links to all of the information that we've been dealing with, the resources we've gathered, and the different pros and cons of the options, but educate as much as possible so they have a good understanding as they're answering the survey. We'll do a presentation. We're on the 24th, we'll be finalizing the survey and preparing a presentation that we will be giving to the school committee at the April 1st meeting. So we'll do the presentation, it will update you and the public as to all the stuff that we've been working on, and letting them know when the survey will be going out. For April 7th and 28th are our April meetings. We'll be reviewing the survey results and working on the final report. And so we think by May 6th at that meeting, we'll be presenting the final report to the school committee. Now, the school committee could decide that they'd like us to do some other things, which will be available to do, but that's what the timeline looks like right now.
Thank you, Dr. Mealy.
Yeah, let me
Ms.
just,
Lynch.
can I just remind the public that the purpose of the subcommittee, and I just said this, but I want to emphasize it, is to identify all of the possible options for these school projects for the school committee to make a recommendation. It's not the purpose of the subcommittee to make a recommendation to the school committee.
Right, so what the committee's been doing is listing pros and cons of each model, and then we would bring that all to you.
Thank you. Anything else, Ms. Lynch?
Nope, he covered it.
Okay. So, Mr. Teresi, any questions or comments? Okay, and Mr. McDevitt?
Nope, not at this time.
Ms. Mabley?
All set, thank you.
Okay, I do have one question. This survey that's going out on March 24th.
It's not going out on March 24th. That's when we are finalizing it as a committee. Our committee is.
And it actually will not go out until after the presentation to the school committee on April 1st.
Okay, that makes sense to me. I wonder if that survey is going out to the general public, because certainly those who do not yet have children in school will have thoughts about some of the options could be, and those who have had experience of our North Andover schools, or, everybody who's a taxpayer has some vested interest in our schools. So I'm hoping that survey is going to be available to the general public and not just the school community.
Yeah, we actually anticipated that, but we would look for guidance from the school committee on that as well.
Okay, so will we need to talk about that on April 1st?
Correct.
Please remind me.
I don't think I'll have to.
I don't know, public comment, introducing people, there's always something forgotten. Okay, so
That's your job, David.
are we all set with that? And we're moving on to the chair's report.
Yes.
So no big thunder, but we did, as a committee in our executive session, vote to approve the MOA with regard to changes at the elementary school. And that includes space, lunch, masks, quarantine needs for students and for teachers. So that will be signed and it will be put on our website for the public as needed or as they wish to access it. On the agenda, it says that I wanted to just give the committee a heads up on future agendas. We will return to our elementary data in April, and I know Ms. Marks has been working on revamping that presentation. We all continue to be very grateful for that group of teachers and administrators that came in, you know, these are tough times with a lot of pressure, but we're looking forward to hearing that again. And then in May, we're expecting to have an update with recommendations for the separately budgeted recovery services. And I think it's important for us as a committee to realize that this elementary data is very much like the data that we got earlier in the year from the middle school and the high school that really just told us where we are with regards to the standards and what we're doing to get to the standards. And we'll need to have a separate conversation about recovery budgeting. So does anybody have questions or comments about that? Hearing none, I just want to share with you a couple of other things. We did get a notification from the Mass Association of School Committees that there's been a change in mask regulations. And Ms. Mabley's done a little bit of work. Can you please speak to that, Ms. Mabley?
Sure. So the big regulation that they came out with didn't actually apply to us because their original policy did not require mask wearing for K in first grade, but when we wrote our policy, we did require masks from K through 12. Our policy states that children below the age of 5 are exempt from this policy. That's the youngest. So we don't have to make any changes because we had already adopted that. But the state went from not requiring K and 1 to wear masks to now requiring that. So we were already on board, which is a win for once. It's good.
Thank you. I think we've done a lot of good things this year, and I appreciate you looking into that. And that guidance just came out a day or two ago. I want to thank Ms. Marks. I had the opportunity yesterday to go to the live stream with author Kate Mesner, and there were something like 1,200 families watching that live stream, and our students came up with more than 400 questions for that author, so it's really exciting. Just let everybody know that the CPAC community chat will be on March 22nd, which is Monday of next week, I believe. And just to let the committee know that the Crest Collaborative presented their budget at our board meeting on Wednesday, and I have been given the opportunity to work with their TA negotiations. So in addition to our negotiations here in town, I'm going to be working with the collaborative on their negotiations. So if anybody has questions about those things, they can let me know. And that's it for the chair's report, unless somebody thinks I've forgotten something. Okay, and so our next order of business is new business. And so that is on the high school schedule, and I'll turn it back to Dr. Mealy and his, Dr. Gilligan and his team.
Thank you, Chair Picard. Before I turn this over to Principal Jackson at North Andover High School, and he can reintroduce his team just so everyone knows who's here again, I just want to say I think that it's important for folks to know that this first reading on a proposed new schedule at North Andover High School will be for the next academic year. And this has probably been, it has been a long time in the works or being considered. You know, as you know, this year with the level services budget, one of the things we were able to do is add 5 new positions at the high school next year, which are critical to this. But this is the first reading on that schedule, and I do not want to steal all Mr. Jackson's thunder. I probably might try to explain it all, but I'm going to give it right over to him. So, Mr. Jackson, if you could introduce who's here again, and we're thrilled. And I think that if Brian and Cheryl, if we don't have anything else for you or don't have any more questions, I think we could probably dismiss you. So.
Can I just say real quick,
All right.
Cheryl,
Sounds
before you
great.
leave-
Thank you.
Cheryl, before you leave, I wanted to say thank you. It's been great working with you over the last 6.5 years. Your team of nurses are just absolutely fabulous, and it's been definitely, one of the highlights of being on the school committee is working with you. So thank you, Cheryl, for your service.
All right, Principal Jackson.
All right, Mr. Mealy, do you mind if I take over the presenting here? Just so I'm going to use my cursor later on with my group to kind of outline some things that are going to be said.
Not at all.
Thank you. Going to live up to it. You do a nice job with that. So. All right, so we're here to talk about our proposed new schedule for the 2021-2022 school year. I am joined tonight again by North Andover math teacher, also girls varsity hockey coach, and co-president of the North Andover Teachers Association, Lisa Rasnan, our guidance director, Steve Nugent, who a lot of you also know as our boys track coach as well, assistant principals Brooke Randall and Scott Young, and also our special education administrator, Paula Sexton, who will be here in case there's any answers or comments needed from that perspective. I want to first talk about welcome everyone and talk about the why. Why are we here talking about this schedule now? After I get done with that, I'm going to introduce Lisa in just so she can talk about her role as co-president in the role of teachers. She's here to kind of represent the teachers. And I think as Ms. Mabley mentioned earlier, the partnership between the administration and Teachers Association, we've had a great partnership over the last 3-4 years that have led us to do a lot of work to what we're presenting tonight. And I think it's important that the community hear from one of our representatives from the teachers as well. So without further ado, why? The trimester model came into existence back in 2008, 2009. As a result of severely substandard funding, lack of adequate resources, and the loss of needed staff members. All that resulted in the elimination of all but a few courses outside of our core academic areas for our high school students. That's important because at the time we had a brand new high school that still looks in great shape, but we had our art rooms down at the south end of the building with not one art teacher. In our visual arts department, we only had current sergeant school principal Karen Leahy was the physical education wellness teacher. She was our only physical education and wellness teacher at that time. Times were tough. I came on as assistant principal in July of 2007, right at that time with several other administrators. Thankfully, we had an override by the citizens of North Andover that did add 6.6 teachers to the high school staff for that upcoming 2007-2008 school year. Unfortunately, the additional staffing was not enough to restore our high school staff for what it needed to be. And we lost kind of a lot of the existing programs at that time. Prior to that trimester model going into effect, the high school was also put on warning from our NEASC, which stands for New England Association of Schools and Colleges. And it resulted in a possible loss of our accreditation. I know I was here earlier in the year to talk about that. We just had our every 10-year visit last year, I believe, although it seems like there's been 1,000 things since then. But we had that visit and things are great. Over the last 12 years, since that override time till now, the high school has worked within that schedule framework of a trimester. We've done great work with it. I think we've done our best to make it, kind of tweak it each year and adjust it to make it best for our staff and students. But what that trimester model, and that was a little bit abnormal at the time, as opposed to what we're going back in a more traditional manner. But that trimester model reduced our full year courses, which is 180 school days, to basically 2 trimesters, which is 120 days. Had a great number of trimester electives that run for 60 days long. So basically, we made that transformation in our schedule. It allowed us to use our staff far more efficiently, but also, came with it a lot of transition and other things for our kids, which we'll talk about a little bit further on in this presentation. What we did end up enhancing our diverse course opportunities for our students. And we do want to talk about how we're going to keep some of those wonderful electives we have in some core academic areas and some more traditional elective areas moving forward. Thanks to the work of many town and school leaders over the last 12 years, Dr. Gilligan and our great team at the district level, our current school committee that's been extremely supportive to the high school over the last few years. Additional teaching positions have returned to the high school, including there are 5 new teaching positions identified for the fiscal year 22 budget. So the timing is actually works out very well for us to be here to present this transition in models. The new teaching positions are needed for the high school to return to a schedule structure that we believe best fulfills the academic and social emotional needs for all of our students. With that being said, I also want to invite in Lisa Rasnin again, just to kind of talk about our work with the Teachers Association that led us to this point. Lisa?
Good evening, everybody. So over the last few years, there definitely was a point where teachers, faculty in the building could see things changing, really focusing on 21st century learning and realizing that we could maybe do something better for our students. Lots of different disciplines identifying needs and coming up with creative ideas to fit those needs. And during that time, Mr. Nugent and the guidance department had gotten a group of teachers together to start talking about what we could do, what were our needs, and how we could move forward. Obviously, with the pandemic last year, we kind of had to pause a little bit in that work. But teachers at the high school were very passionate about making a change to see what would be best for our students. So this fall, even amongst all of the chaos with new schedules and new policies and teaching kids in front of you and teaching kids at home, we had a great group of about 15 teachers that came together from every department, specialists, and we met over about a 6-week period to kind of fine tune our thoughts and ideas about what could be best for our school. So it was a very collaborative process. Ms. Nugent gave us a great starting point to move forward and look at through the eyes of a teacher. And I'm really proud of the work that people put in, going back to the departments, getting feedback, making small changes. And the whole time we were doing this, really the heart of it was what is best for the students of North Andover? What can we do to make some changes so that every kid can get the best experience? Whether they're a student that might have some additional learning needs, how can we support those students? Maybe it's a student that it is in a traditional college prep level, or if it's our students that are really excelling academically. What can we do to make something that is a schedule that would fit for everybody? And the last piece that was important to both teachers, to students, and to administration was getting back that community involvement in a variety of different ways, whether it was allowing students to take classes at the college level, letting them help out at a local, whether it's a senior center or at one of the schools, giving some flexibility to bring those programs back that because of our rotation and because of our trimester schedule had gone away. So lots of positives. We've worked really hard to make this a collaborative experience for all that are involved at the high school in terms of teaching and learning for students. So I thank both the administration and the leadership for wanting to have it be this process, because I think that's what makes North Andover so unique, is that we can work together to create the best outcome for our students.
Thank you, Lisa. Steve Nugent, Guidance Director, is going to talk about why a transition in these schedules.
Good evening, everyone. So I get I got to do the voiceover for this slide that we shared with our community earlier, and I guess the thing I keep saying consistently, the most important thing that both Lisa and the teachers, as well as students, parents, anyone we talk to, the most important thing we needed to do was to improve relationships. That's the key to success in any, whether it's in the classroom or out on the playing field or anything you do in life, is those building those relationships. So first and foremost, we know that moving our classes to a full year model, keeping a student with the same teacher for the duration of a school year, September to June, it would give them an opportunity to build a deeper, more meaningful relationship. So second would be stability. If anyone's ever had students at the high school, they know that with trimester schedules, our CP biology happens all 3 trimesters, but you could end up with 3 separate teachers. And so the number of faces that a student sees over the lifetime of their schedule, it's staggering in some pieces. So in some places, so it's one of those things where we focus really on how do we minimize the faces, improve those deep relationships, and so the stability for our students and those fewer transitions. This third one, Lisa hit on, and it's again a very important part of this whole puzzle. Something that we heard when we were visited by NEASC was our lack of access to 21st century learning opportunities. It sounds like a mouthful. Really what that is giving our students opportunities to do things out in the community, whether they wanted to volunteer, get a job, or take advantage of dual enrollment opportunities, early college. It's something that Lawrence is doing, Haverhill is doing, Masco is doing, all at different degrees, something we're definitely falling behind on. And because our schedule rotates, because there's only 5 classes in a day, it's really impossible for our students to break away and take advantage of these 21st century learning opportunities. Continuity of curriculum. So I think that the easiest way to describe this would be if a student, most of our classes are designed to be 2 trimesters. So if a student has a course that meets trimesters 1 and 2, they're in that course from September to March. And let's just say they pick that same curriculum up the following year, but not until 2nd trimester, which is December. So you're going from March to December without that continuity of that curriculum. So it's one of those things where having courses from September to June in a more traditional setting, we know it's a better model. Length of classes. Thing I like to point out, sometimes, this pandemic has been a very challenging experience, but personally, I've learned a few things from the pandemic that I may not change as a dad or as a guidance counselor or as a track coach. One of the things that we looked at was the length of our classes. 73 minutes right now is currently constituted in our trimester. It's just been too long for our students when you add in all the other things that they're dealing with. So a 55-minute block of time was what we settled in on, that we thought was the best fit for both teaching and learning. And then opportunities for access to specialized programs. So for instance, would be, if you think about the 5, what are commonly referred to as the 5 core areas: English, math, history, science, and world language. Well, if you only have 5 periods in a day over a trimester, you got 3 separate trimesters, if you're in classes, you've got to sacrifice something at some point in time. And the beauty of our schedule was we've been able to add in a lot of interesting courses, far too many to mention, but some I'll identify right now is that, music, robotics, a lot of other specialized programs in all of our different departments. Well, students just didn't have the opportunity to access these things. A lot of our music students had to sacrifice 1 or 2 terms. Special education students who required academic support had to sacrifice something else to get the support they needed to be successful. This spills into many other areas. So again, opportunities for access to these specialized programs would definitely be enhanced if we had 7 periods in a day. Thank you, Mr. Jackson, everyone.
Thank you, Steve. Now at this time, we'll turn it over to Assistant Principal Scott Young to give us a brief overview about some bell schedules.
Good evening, everybody. So we're going to take a look at the structure of a day in the current trimester model. Steve talked to it a little bit, but I just wanted to highlight a few different things. The first thing you'll notice is that, as Steve said, 4 of the periods during the day are 73 minutes long. The 5th period, or the lunch block, which is actually the 4th period of the day, labeled D, that only includes 53 minutes of instructional time plus 25 minutes of, and we do run 3 lunches in that model, where a kid could have lunch during the first part of the period, the second part of the period, or the third. So that is the bell schedule of the day. The other thing that we wanted to highlight, and the colors do a nice job of kind of helping you see the rotation that occurs, as that schedule rotates throughout the week. You notice class 1 in green meets first period on Monday, then it's last period on Tuesday, Wednesday, and so forth. The consistency, it was done with good intention when we designed it, but the consistency for a student is just not there. And it also obviously limits their ability to connect with the outside world when they have a class at a different time each day of the week. And then the other limitation of the schedule, as we've found, is there are only 5 blocks to fill in. And as Steve explained, when you start filling in with your 5 cores, it doesn't leave as much flexibility as we would like for our kids. So kind of in reaction to all that, we designed the new schedule, the new proposed schedule. If you want to flop over, thank you. And it looks equally as scary with all the colors, but it's really not nearly as complex. Just starting on the left-hand side, each student will register for 7 courses. On any given day, only 6 of those courses will meet, so 1 will be dropped. We were able to create 6 time periods during the day where each class is 55 minutes of instruction, including that lunch block. We will still run 3 different periods of lunch within that blocks, but one of the big benefits is that block of time will include 55 minutes of instruction, just like every other period. With 7 blocks available to students, they have a lot of flexibility in terms of their needs met and their interests met. I was thinking about it this morning, and and it's kind of like that carnival game. If there are 5 cans and I get 3 throws at 5 cans, I don't feel so good about my chances of winning. If you put 7 cans out there and I have 2 throws, I'm going to land what I need more frequently. It's a nice trade-off for us, and it really allows kids to be more diverse and really experience what we have to offer in our curriculum. The days that are numbered 1 through 7, they indicate which period would be dropped that day. So it'll be like another foreign language for us, but we'll get it up pretty quickly. But that's the structure of the day. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Randall, who's going to look, nope, I lied. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Nugent, who's going to just talk about the impact on graduation.
Yeah, so one of the questions we anticipated and have received all along would be, how does this impact our graduation requirements? If you just look at this slide and see a lot of letters and words and colors, then obviously, the short story would be our current schedule, our current graduation requirements, you need to earn 130 credits to graduate. But you can earn up to 156 credits in our current schedule. So we have 26 additional credits built in right now for students. In the new model, there would be only 1 semester course, so 2.5 less per year. So over the course of a student's 4 years, it would be 10 credit difference, but it's only 1 semester course difference each year. So these graduation requirements really won't change. There's still going to be a decent buffer built in for students who might have some academic difficulties or have to audit a class. But this is really like the simple version. I think the trimester model, every class is worth 2.5. In the new semester model, every half course would be, a half year course would be 2.5. Every full year course would be 5 credits. And you can see some of the courses there also that right now we offer A, Bs, and Cs in. So I think that's pretty much the skinny on this slide.
Yeah, and I'll point out, Steve, great job in explaining that in that bottom right section here that talks about subjects where most students currently take 3 trimesters. It lists the 5 here specifically. Some of the things where people look at when Ms. Randall will talk about is, do students gain more flexibility in our new model as they did in the trimester model. And I think here what you see is when we have some courses need 3 trimesters, a little more extended time over that full year model of 2 trimesters in the original design. So it does lock up a student's schedule and reduce the amount of different classes they can take. So, you know, and it's not different subjects here. The overall equitable nature of a schedule we can run, you'll see visually upcoming from Ms. Randall, how we're going to be more consistent for all of our students. Ms. Randall, assistant principal at the high school.
Thanks, Mr. Jackson, and good evening, everyone. All right, I'm going to give everyone's eyes a second to adjust to this here. So what I'm going to run through with everyone tonight are 3 different side-by-side examples of basically taking a look at 3 different students. This definitely doesn't encompass all examples. You know, in our admin meetings, we've run through numerous different comparisons, but we filtered down on these 3. And so basically the little model here on the left, you can see represents a trimester model. So this is an actual student. This is a senior now, who these are the actual classes they've taken over the course of their 4-year high school career. And what we're doing is comparing that to the right-hand side for the proposed full year / semester model and how everything would have looked for this student had it gone through that type of model in their high school career. Mr. Jackson's going to help me out there a little bit with the cursor as I walk through and point a few things out to you here. So this first one here is a student who's taken many AP classes over their later years of high school and also has been involved in music. All right. And so what I'd like to point out here first, Mr. Jackson, is we added a little missing column. So for the trimester model, you can see here that there's a column there that says missing. What did this student have to make a tough choice about? What did they miss out on with some of their choices in courses over the years? And you can see here in the 9th grade year, because they were looking to try to fit in everything that they could, you can see it's a music student. They were able to take their music in trimester 1, trimester 2. Unfortunately, they had to sacrifice taking music in trimester 3 in order to fit in one of their wellness electives in that trimester. Focusing still there in that 9th grade year, right above music, they also had to miss out, if you will, on the other wellness credit, the other half of the wellness credit in that freshman year. So then as they moved on to sophomore year, you can see in the first trimester, there needed to be another tough decision made there, and they actually weren't able to fit music in their schedule for another trimester there. They did get an AP history course in that year, but again, it led to some tough decisions. The 11th grade year, a little bit tougher for the music. They had to miss out on it trimesters 1 and 3 because again, they wanted to have it all and took the AP science class there, as you can see, along with AP history and the beginning trimester of the AP Calculus BC course in the 3rd trimester, but it made a tough call for music again. And then finally in 12th grade, again, there was another trimester of music that had to have been missed there. Compare that with the proposed full year / semester schedule and everything fits. So same courses working all the way through. Oh, I should add that missed wellness class, that student would have had to have gotten creative before the end of their high school career to be able to get that one back in. So that could have been like an online wellness class that they needed to take outside of the regular school day or something of that nature. But again, back to the proposed full year schedule, everything fits in for this student. We can go ahead and flip it to the next comparison, Mr. Jackson. Okay, in this next comparison side by side, we're looking at a student who's in the special education program and has an academic support block during their day. Okay, so same side by side, this is an actual student, and we looked at their trimester model over the 4 years, compared that with what would that potentially have looked like in a full year model. So a couple things I do want to point out on this one here. So in 9th grade, you can see we added that missing column as well, again, for this student. over the course of 4 years, they really didn't miss much per se, but they did miss out on that wellness course in the freshman year. But I also really want to point out some of those inconsistencies. Mr. Nugent spoke about this on a previous slide. And Mr. Jackson will help me out with the cursor to draw your attention to where I'm speaking about. But in 9th grade, you can see with the orange boxes of math. So trimester 1, the student was able to fit their first part of their math course in. They weren't able to take the second part of that math course until 3rd trimester. So there was a gap there. There was a bit of inconsistency. So from December to March, that student did not have math. Similarly with 11th grade, you can see that same pattern happening again for that student in math, 1st and 3rd trimesters with no math in between. Similarly for science, just to point that out as well, in the 10th grade year, looking at the green boxes of science, 10th grade year, a gap right in the middle there again. One other thing I want to point out for this student, we talked about, hey, if we move to this proposed full year semester model, will that open up opportunities for students? And I just want to draw your attention really quickly to the blue boxes. That's a good one to kind of compare left and right. So those are elective courses in, whatever curriculum, whatever discipline that might be in. And for this particular student on the left-hand side with the trimester model, they were able to select 7 electives over the course of their high school career, obviously mainly 11th, 12th grade. Compare that with the full year model, they would have been able to select 11 different electives. And finally, I just want to point out for this specific student, the new schedule definitely adds some consistency to their day. And you can just kind of see that with the pattern of colors, with the time of day that courses are offered and having that consistency, and especially with their support block and the consistency of when that falls here. You can also see that this student has many less transitions over the course of a year and their 4 years. All right, and we want to turn the page to one more comparison for you tonight, and that is another student, again, an actual student here. They didn't take any AP courses over their 4 years. They're a college prep student that ended up with room in their schedule for many electives because of the courses that they chose. So by senior year, they had a lot of flexibility in taking courses to stimulate some creative thinking. In whichever disciplines they chose. All right, so I'm going to walk you through this one a little bit, the left and right comparisons. I want to point out a few things on this schedule comparison. So the gaps in learning, I just want to again highlight for this student. They had curriculum breaks or inconsistencies in curriculum in math in 9th grade. So again, similar to a previous model, they had that 1st to 3rd trimester jump with nothing in between. And I would dare to say maybe even a little bit more detrimental would be the 10th grade year to the 11th grade year. Mr. Jackson, if you want to help me with that. So the 10th grade year, they actually had math all 3 trimesters, which was great. But then transitioning to 11th grade, they didn't see math until the 2nd trimester. So now we're going a March of 1 year, end of the school year, but we're going through a summer and we're going all the way to December before that student sees math again. Similarly, there was a couple of gaps. World language from 9th to 10th grade. World language, of course, another building block type of course. They have it through the end of 9th grade. They don't pick it up again until 2nd trimester or December of that 10th grade year. And we also see the gap in science in 10th grade. I want to point out here, your attention might be drawn down to that senior year of, wow, okay, so this student got all of those graduation requirements in from 9th through 11th grade, minus the required math and English, of course, in 12th grade that they needed to take. But you'll notice it freed them up to take a lot of different electives. So what is that like? Is that just kind of, they sort of lounge around all day and just take math and English? No, far from it. So what I did here was not just write the word elective, but show you specifically for this student, the type of electives that they did choose to take in this 12th grade year. So they were taking a history in the first trimester, a history elective, a business elective, and a science elective, in addition to their wellness and math. Moving into the trimester 2 and 3, it's a little covered up there with the menu, but they were also able to take some pretty interesting electives. And I just want to read off just quickly what a few of those are, our highly selected electives at the high school, such as creative writing, yoga, graphic design is another very popular elective, forensic science, and we have two consecutive years worth of that, or now will be semesters of that, business law class, and marketing. And so a few of those that I just mentioned were actually selected here by this student in the senior year. But you can compare that left to right. And in the senior year specifically, this student ends up having the same amount of electives that they can take in that senior year. But overall, in the full year model or proposed schedule, they end up with a couple more electives than they would have in the trimester model. It's 18 versus 20. Still a lot of electives. But again, that opportunity to really dig in to some very creative courses that they may want to focus into by senior year. All right, and I think that's it for the comparisons, but I'm going to roll right into the last couple slides of our presentation here. If you're looking at this, like, what is this web? What you're looking at here, and if you are if you're looking at this presentation and you've had students come through the high school, or you have current students that are in the high school, you maybe have seen this before. It's our math department's flow chart for our current trimester schedule. You can see arrows going every which way. It's a very involved flow pattern, if you will, for our math department courses that are offered. I just putting this up here, and we won't jump the gun just yet, Mr. Jackson. I'm just putting this up there. We're going to give you like a quick, hopefully then versus now comparison, just for clarity's sake, of what an old flow chart for a department could look like versus what a new and improved flow chart could look like. So if we go ahead and flip to that last slide, this very much cleaner, much more easy to read flow chart is what the math department's flow chart would transition to in the new proposed schedule. And we didn't share this one tonight to dig into math specifically, but really just to show you that comparison of confusion and a lot going on versus cleaned up, easy to read, hopefully a lot easier to follow. One thing I do want to point out, though, just because we are all looking at it, though, is in this new proposed model and with the math offerings themselves, similar to previous years, there will still be many opportunities for a student to change pathways, if you will, coming into the high school. This map reads left to right as opposed to vertically in the old model. So if a student coming in from 8th grade, whether they were taking the 8th grade math course or taking algebra and coming into to the high school for 9th grade, you can see there, this is for the upcoming year, is that with the option of having some summer work involvement right off the bat, there could be that option to take to get into the pathway to take an honors algebra 1 and geometry course in the 9th grade. But beyond that, there are other opportunities here to kind of shift pathways throughout the high school career. And again, I know that tonight's presentation is not a time to necessarily dig into math, but I did just want to share that since we're seeing the map on the screen. But really just to give you, again, that example of clarity from old to new and what that would look like.
Great job, Ms. Randall. A couple things before we open it up, obviously, for final comments or questions from the committee. Also is, this schedule, as it's opened with, we had to go to a trimester because of some budget cuts. Back in 2005, 2006, back in a little bit better times before those cuts had to be made, we ran at the high school, before I was even here, a 6-period day where students kind of had a 6-period day but chose 7 classes. So this is kind of a return to something that exists for, I shouldn't say a lot of our staff anymore, but we do have some staff that were still here in that model. Also, the framework makes for a much smoother transition from the middle school to the high school. In the middle school, this is what our middle school students follow. they take 7 periods a day. I know the related arts do kind of change there as our electives would change. That approximately that 55 minutes will be a much smoother transition to a full rotated 5-period, 73-minute block. And I think definitely short-term and long-term would be better for our students. And to Mr. McDevitt's point earlier, we've been trying to communicate this as best as possible. You know, if you're listening tonight and, you know, it went a little quick for you, you know, we're going to have another parent session on Tuesday night. And again, I sent this out to all our high school families. Mr. Gonsalve blasted all this information out to all of our middle school families. We have a nice banner on our high school website where you can click on and get this additional info. I will happily add the slideshow to that as well. We do have on our website a frequently asked questions that does get in a little bit more detail than even the stuff we talked about tonight. And we have the overall timeline there as well. So we'll have an opportunity to have our students, our current students, meet with student council on Monday. And again, another opportunity for parents that may want a more intimate session and spot to ask some questions as well. So we're trying to do our best to make sure we're over-communicating this. We have resources available because it's really something we believe is best for our students. So I want to thank all of our presenters here tonight that joined us as well, and you know, turn it back over to the committee.
Thank you all very much. It's not often that an administration and a union would be coming together to present a unified idea. So just recognize that that's one of the things about North Andover that we can really be proud of. And I will go to our committee members and see if folks have questions or comments or concerns. And I will start with Mr. Teresi.
No, Madam Chair, I have any questions, but just again want to thank Chet, Brooke, and Scott and Steve for the presentation. Very informative. Obviously, my kids haven't got to that part yet, but you guys can tell I put a lot of work into this, so thank you for that.
Thank you, Mr. Tracy. Ms. Lynch.
Yes. So when I first told, I have a 14-year-old freshman, and when I first told him this was coming, he hugged me and thanked me profusely and said, "This is the best thing the school committee's ever done." So I may or may not have taken the credit for that. But I think this is fantastic. I love it. And I will say there's a couple benefits that I also see in this on the new schedule. I think that it oftentimes takes students and teachers a few weeks at least to get to know each other's learning style and teaching style. And this lends itself to a better, as you talk about the relationships, this lends itself to a smoother transition and a more successful class when they have the time to build that relationship early on and for longer. And then I think another benefit is that when students fall behind, at the end of the trimester, there's a mad scramble to try to catch everything up in a week or two. And this allows for those students who struggle at first to have more time to catch up and do it in a way that's not so stressful. So I think those are just two other benefits. But I love it. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Lynch. Mr. McDevitt.
I do have a couple of questions. I'm wondering if you could pull up the slides again, Mr. Jackson.
Happy to.
So could you go to the slide for the proposed new bells schedule? I think it's probably 5.
That one?
Yep, perfect. So one of the things that I notice is the repetition of classes in block A and B and E and F. And I'm wondering if you could tell me a little bit of why those are the ones that are not changing.
Mr. Nugent, you want to talk about that specific to even E and F and opportunities for our kids too?
Yeah, well, I think the easiest way to explain it is if you look at the bottom group. So the easiest way to, we've got 7 classes that students are scheduled for. They only have 6 in a day. We're going to drop the period that coincides with the name of the day. So on day 1, we drop class 1. On day 2, we drop class 2. So I think what you're seeing is just a reflection of where the drop is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I get that part. I'm wondering if you can explain, like, why is class 7 always the end, and why is there a benefit to that? I know you guys have spoken about kind of outside opportunities, and then class 1 is always basically block A, except for day 1.
Well, I guess when you take out, say, on day 2, you take out class 2, everything else just moves up a spot. So other than, removing a block, just like we've done on any other, like now we put it at the back of the end of the day. So we have 5 classes. We move a class to the end of the day and things just move up. With this, we're just removing it completely. So everything just moves one spot. It's important to have, I think, the same class as often as possible, the last block of the day, because then, for instance, if a student gets to senior year, they've met all their graduation requirements and they want to go work, or they want to go volunteer at an elementary school that we just can't do right now. They can now plan to use that block 7. So 6 out of the 7 days of their cycle, they've actually got that period free where they can use it that way. I do envision, whether it's next year or down the road, if this is successful, that we can potentially do this for 2 blocks of time. I think that sometimes a 55-minute block, may not be enough to do that. But for students who fit the criteria, I would imagine that we would give them opportunities to get on college campuses, which is the model that Haverhill and Lawrence are using right now. They have a model where they actually transport their students right after lunch over to the campus, and they're gone for the last 2 blocks of the day and take college courses at the campus.
Okay, I think that was actually the answer I was looking for on that 7th class, always being in block F, providing the continuity, right? It's not fluctuating, as it looks like B, C, D, and E do have a lot more fluctuation to them. Okay. If we could go to slide, I don't know what slide this is, schedule comparison number 3.
You got it.
Perfect. So when I look at this, I see on the right-hand side, obviously a lot of concentration of the core classes, grades 9 and 10. In grade 11, I see, there's 4 cores. Grade 12, there's only 2. So is there an opportunity to stagger that a little bit so that we have, maybe that student takes English, math, and science as a junior, English, math, and history as a senior, right? So we're doing 3 and 3 instead of 4 and 2.
Yeah, no, great question. And I'll jump in before even Steve, if you want to supplement here as well. I think for this example, if you look on the left-hand side at the bottom in blue, at some of the courses that particular student took in history and in science as well. Most of our students on the right-hand side, as a graduation requirement, there's 4 full years of English and math. A very high percentage of our students will still continue to take a 4th year of science or a 4th year of history, in whether that's a semesterized elective form or a full year course as well. So I don't think we put them in necessarily for where that would be for this particular comparison, but students would absolutely have that opportunity. And Steve, correct me if I'm wrong with everything I said, but I think they would go in for those classes in specifically science, history, or even a world language.
Yeah, you nailed it. I think even if you go on the right side of the slide to grade 11, you could imagine that the period 5 elective in theory could be world language. They could even add like a second science or a second math. So when we use the word elective, it's more loosely used in terms of a student has choice for what they take. And like Chet said, most of our students do take 4 years of at least the 4 cores, and many take world language all 4 years.
Okay. So one of the things that we always approve is the course of studies, which is the classes. Do you envision a lot of changes in classes compared to what we offer today?
Steve, go ahead on that.
Yeah, I think I don't anticipate many changes, Andrew, as far as for instance, right now with our trimester schedule, a good example might be anatomy. So we have college prep anatomy, and we offer anatomy, blood and guts, mission control, and the skin you're in. So I think those are the names.
Yep, that's right.
I know. 3 different varieties of college prep anatomy. Well, they're all going to be paired together and be one full year of college prep anatomy now. Similar to like math, where math, we always call them like a group of classes. So I think the names of classes will be a little bit more concise, but they'll be inclusive of. So the program of studies will look a little bit different, but I don't imagine introducing any brand new courses as a result of the new schedule. It'll be just more how we're packaging them, what we're calling them, and the content might be from a couple of different classes, not just one.
Okay.
Yeah. And I would say that with the caveat that as we move forward in some of these 21st century learning courses where we're looking at a more, we select a community involvement, or if we look down the research for a senior project, those things could be added down the road when we have more time, for teachers to kind of plan those and put them into. And those are things we're excited about. But I think as far as what we have existing, we don't see that change happening now, because we always want the student choice to drive the schedule. And that's one of the things that Steve didn't mention earlier, but it's something that is near and dear to our hearts, and it's something that he kind of guides too. Is we those students fill out those course on course selection day, and he runs that through the computer, and that's what guides the choices for the kids.
Okay. All right. Can you go to the last slide for the math chart, please?
You got it.
Okay. So one of the things that I think concerns me a little bit about this, and I'm wondering, you may not know the answer today, but in order to get placed into 8th grade algebra, that's based upon how you're doing in 7th grade. And it seems to me that there's some very clear tracking that's going on very early, that 7th grade year, which is really kind of driving your high school math. I'm going to say that makes me very uncomfortable, and I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'll speak to that a little bit, Mr. McDevitt, as well, because I think that's something, regardless of schedule structure, even our trimester model, or if we move to this one, it's still something we're working collectively as a team. At the high school, we've already had conversations with our wonderful mathematics coordinator, Debbie Daly, and kind of going through and looking forward to what these courses could look like here, but also in going back and looking, involving Ms. Larcombe, our STEM coordinator at the, like a pre-K through 12 level, in designing some future conversations, even with middle school as well, so we can sit down and look at, hey, for this particular example, you use math, where students take math in the 6th grade, math in the 7th grade, applied math and science in the 7th grade, math in the 8th grade coming in. And we can really look at mapping our curriculum, especially for us at the high school in this new proposed model, and how we can improve opportunities for our students to really move from CP to honors, especially when, some people develop late. I know I speak for, as someone back when I went through school, even way back when, I don't even want to talk about the year for high school, but you do develop later in some areas, and it just takes some students a little bit longer to get to that point, and we still want to have those opportunities. One of the things even on this slide that you see, and I know it's something we've already had discussions, thanks to Dr. Gilligan and Ms. Marks, is with thinking about money with recovery services. What can we do in the summer? Can we provide opportunities, and something we're going to plan to do for students to take summer work in example math, where they can move to get move to a pathway. So at least to an honors pathway from CP, if that's a student's goal. So it's something that we have to continue to look at. I've had conversations with Mr. Gonzalez, and we're both excited to, really facilitate them as well. So regardless of structure, it is something that we want to provide opportunities for our students to really progress, regardless of when, on there, whether it's, 8th to 9th grade, 9th to 10th, or thereafter.
Okay. And then similar question as well, I can't remember how many years ago, but we kind of brought back some foreign languages and put them into the 8th grade. And so, we have students who start things off and they may decide, I want to take French, for example, and they go through the 8th grade year, and then they decide as a freshman, I'm going to switch over to Spanish or German or, some other, language that we offer out there. There's always been kind of this, I'm behind one trimester for that. And I know students have had an opportunity to take a class in the summer and kind of jump up. But we're really starting off with language as a full year, trimester or semester one. How do you think that looks? And I know that there's not a chart up there, but how do we enable those students to kind of switch and start off? Some are going to be walking in with that foundation from 8th grade.
Yeah. Steve or Brooke, you want to talk to this one a little bit? I know we talked about this one today specifically.
I'm happy to take first crack, and Brooke can clean up my mess. So I think the adjustment in the way we're going to use the time, if this schedule is approved, what we envision right now would be every student who starts world language as a 9th grader would start with the 1. So right now, to understand that, to back up a little bit, right now students come into the high school, they either start at 1A, so the very beginning of either one of the 3 languages, or 1B, which would mean the second half of that first year of either one of the languages. We envision everyone starting at 1. So what that does, to Mrs. McDevitt's point, it puts everybody on a level playing field, and everyone's starting at a similar point. So I envision no one, they may feel that way, but in actuality, whether it's their first day in German or they've taken German for whatever time they had in middle school, everyone's starting the same in freshman year with German. So I think it would eliminate the feeling of being behind, Mr. McDevitt.
Okay.
And also, I'll hop on there, Mr. Nugent. With that said, you might be thinking, comparing it to like a mathematics model of, well, wait a minute, if everybody's going to kind of start at square one, will that allow students to get, like, if they had wishes to get to an AP level in that particular language, would that hinder them at all? And the answer is no. Right. So they're all starting at that level 1, but they absolutely, if they wish to, would have that opportunity to reach that AP level in any of the 3 languages that they're choosing to enter into. And I think that benefit too of starting at square one, even if you've, I'll use an example, even if you've taken Spanish in the middle school and come in and you do have a little bit of a basic level of understanding, and maybe you're in there with a student that's coming over from having taken French, there's still a lot of benefit in kind of still start getting that review and starting from square one a little bit there with their peers. We have a fantastic world language department at the high school. Teachers are outstanding, and I know they'll do an incredible job with, if they do end up with different level learners in their classroom in that level 1, they're going to do amazing things. And again, it's all up to what the student is deciding they want for their future, taking that level 2 course in the sophomore year, and then into the junior and senior years. We are working, and there's curriculum adjustments being made. So if a student does want to reach that AP course by their later years of high school, they will absolutely be able to do that.
Okay, great. Thank you. So just finally, there's obviously been a lot of hard work and conversations and planning and preparation kind of going through this. And so this is definitely good. I think there's a lot of positives. I like the fact that, the continuity of classes for students is really there. It is something that we've heard in the community all the time. My kid didn't take math, and now we went 6 months without math, and so this kind of brings that back, I think, into a place where most people kind of grew up with, if you will, and understand kind of the value and the importance of kind of putting that all together. I would just encourage people to attend the forum. Mr. Jackson, I know that you said it was on the website out there for that, to have additional questions that are answered. And then, if there's feedback and thoughts, I would love to see some of those come back to the committee so they can review and help make suggestions for this. So, thank you.
You're welcome. Tuesday night at 6:30 p.m. And I will remind everyone, I'll shoot that link back out in my Sunday update this weekend and work with Mr. Gonzalez to get that to the middle school parents as well.
Thank you, Mr. McDevitt. Thank you, team. And I am on to Ms. Mabley.
Thank you. So I can speak from the perspective of an 8th grade parent who received the announcement from Mr. Gonsalves. And I'm proud to say this is the 3rd time I've seen this presentation because I watched your videos. I attended your excellent forum on Tuesday night. And I appreciated the parents who were there. I hope a lot more parents come if they're interested to your next forum, because I think you've really put together excellent information, and your live answers to questions were really, really great. So I appreciate that. And I appreciate the process that you've put together. I think it's been very informative. Just a comment on the math. My daughter, who's now a first year in college, was the first grade that kind of got AMS that was put together. And when we came to sit in the auditorium at the high school when she was an 8th grader, we got this scary, scary math grid. And I remember even the principal at the time was just like, yep, we recognize this is a scary, scary math grid, but we're trying to offer opportunities for growth and students to be able to pursue what they're interested in. And I'm happy that you're continuing to work downward with the middle school, which is where that AMS thing kind of started, to make ready in this discipline and others. So thank you for that, and I like the new grid.
Thank you, Ms. Mabley. Mr. Nugent, I know you heard me say many, many times over many, many years all the concerns that I had about the trimester schedule. And so this is not new information for me, and I'm so pleased with the opportunity to look at this new possibility for North Andover. My first career was as a high school Spanish teacher, and I can, concur with what you guys just said about world language. Kids coming into high school and feeling successful with world language is a fantastic way to start a successful world language career. Many times we hear that, this is not brain surgery. High school scheduling is not brain surgery. It's just a little bit harder. I had a student who had 15 different teachers his freshman year. It wasn't great. And I do have some questions. You talked about directed study hall, and I'm wondering, is that a voluntary activity or is that a required activity? Can students choose to take 7 courses? And are there any limits around that?
Steve, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I think, I speak for everyone on the call. We absolutely would encourage students to sign up for 7 classes. I think that, going back to the statement I made earlier about the pandemic teaching us a little bit, right now, we've thrown around the term, the emotional or social emotional well-being of our students and things like that. And parents have asked, what can you do to provide supports? I know from 2 angles. One, a guidance counselor angle, where we'll now have opportunities to seek out students during a directed study rather than taking them out of a core class, to see them, whether it's, to support them or to, do college prep or whatever the range of the spectrum would be. The other part would be from like the student or the parent angle. Now students actually have a little bit of time to do some work in our school environment. We envision that being different than just being put in a room with a teacher. I can't really comment on what it would eventually look like, but we hope there might be, some supports provided, whether it's peer tutors or things like that down the road. It's still a work in progress. But so yeah, simple answer. I apologize, Helen. Yes, we would envision students having the ability to select or request 7 courses, but I think it's definitely something to consider, the possibility of keeping a directed study if that exists, for those reasons I just cited.
Well, I was also around when we first had our new schedule, or before we had the new schedule, we had the semester schedule, and we had seniors were released at noon, really with no direction and no supports. They just were given a half day of school like a kindergartner. I'm wondering if that is what we're expecting for our seniors, or if that's just a choice or an opportunity for seniors.
I'll just keep talking if it's okay, boss.
Go for it, Steve.
Listen, I think, speaking as a parent of 3 teenagers, that was chaos. I think we did that back in the day out of need. Mr. Jackson highlighted, the growth of the schedule, the growth of the lack of funding, and then the taxpayers stepping up and helping us. And it's been a timeline of different events. I don't envision us going back to the wild, wild west is what we refer to that as. And, really the goal, from my heart, it comes from a perspective of, hey, we want to find opportunities to enhance our students' experience, not just get them out the door and get them out of the way. So I'm looking forward to whether it's, bringing a college professor onto our campus to teach American Sign Language or things like that for students who don't have transportation, or giving them the opportunity to go volunteer in elementary schools. Mrs. Marks and I, we've worked together several years on trying to find ways to get students at the high school down to the elementaries or the middle school. And it's just impossible with a rotating schedule. And, how does it sync up with when the specials happen, things like that. So this new schedule would make that way more possible and easier.
Thank you. And you answered one of my questions, which is, do you envision that you could ever bring in college professors to do the classes right there at North Andover High? So thank you for answering that in advance. I would make a couple of observations. In your comparison number 2, you can pull it up if you want, but I don't think it's necessary. It's the one with the special education student, and it shows that there were no electives in their 9th or 10th grade year. Some of the others showed that kids were missing music or art. That student may have wanted to take music or art, and it doesn't show as missing because they couldn't even get it in 1 of 3 trimesters. That's a tremendous loss of opportunity, especially for a student who may have learning differences, who may really thrive in a choral class or in a visual arts class of some sort, or a pottery class. So I feel like there's so much more missing than you could really even demonstrate for us. Looking at comparative 3 with our CP student, who was primarily concluded their responsibilities for high school by the end of their junior year, that student could dual enroll both first and second semester. They could get 8 college credits by the time they graduate from high school. And that's more than they would have gotten if they were in the heavy AP class, right? So our students having those opportunities at all levels, whatever their preferred learning speed is really exciting. I have a student who loves science, who's at Rochester Institute of Technology, who's studying science. And when in 8th grade, his science teacher said to him, I could recommend you for either honors or CP bio. And he said, well, what's the difference? And the 8th grade teacher said, with CP bio, you get 3 trimesters. And with honors bio, you get 2. And he said, why do I want to go faster through the stuff that I love? So he took CP, and I'm proud of him for doing that. And he took 4 years of science in North Andover. And I just think that there's so much that we can't even see that's missing for these kids. I'm just giving a couple of examples. I would suggest and hope that when you're looking at things that have been single trimesters, especially, for example, that anatomy class, maybe a kid doesn't want to take a whole year of anatomy. Maybe that's 2 semester classes, 2 single semester classes. So they could take, a half a year of anatomy and a half a year of, whatever, pottery. I hope that some of those things that have been single trimesters, and those were some of my kids' favorite classes, some of those finance classes, the business classes, they really enjoyed those single trimesters. I don't know that they would have signed up for a whole year, combining those into one. So that would be a suggestion that I have. But I'm really excited that we've been able to add teachers. That's what stopped us from moving forward with this for so many years. So I appreciate this work. And I think that's all we need here, right? That you guys are done, and that was letter A and letter A1, correct?
Correct.
Right.
Thank you all very much, just to say that, and thanks for my team for coming today, or tonight, I should say, and being part of the presentation. And also, Mr. Teresi, I know you don't like to be called Mr. Teresi at times, but David, thank you for your time served on the committee too. I really appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you, Chet. Thank you to your team as well.
And if the high school team wants to leave, we will not be offended. You are welcome to stay.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
And we are back to revolving accounts, and I am assuming that's going to go to Dr. Mealy.
Yes, you've assumed correctly, Chair Picard. Dr. Mealy.
Okay, so I know you're all anxious to get to the superintendent's mid-cycle review. This won't take long. People will be asking, why are we talking about revolving accounts? That's hardly happening at all, and that would be a very good question. We have to approve revolving accounts every year, just like the operating budget. There's not a lot going on with regards to community programs like normal and transportation and all of those. So what I'm suggesting is we just approve what we had in the budgets for this past year, which we did the same thing last year for this year, and we'll make adjustments as it becomes more clear as we finish up this year and prepare for next year. We can always make those adjustments at a later date. So just so that we do what we need to do officially and have the budgets in there so we can access them, I would ask that we approve the same amounts for FY22 as we have for FY21.
And Dr. Mealy, you're not looking for a vote tonight, right? We'll bring this back for a second reading.
This is just the first reading.
Okay. All right. So folks have any questions or comments? Hearing none, are we ready to move on to the next thing? Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Mealy. And we are on to new business superintendent's mid-cycle report, which is informational, not requiring a vote.
Thank you, Chair Picard. Tonight, I will take you through the mid-cycle update and talk about the goals that we set. And it's unique here in North Andover that the superintendent sets goals. We have a shared school committee goal, and the school committee has goals. So I am going to take you just through a few of the goals and highlight, some of the key actions and the benchmarks. I won't go through them all. There's quite a bit here. And just to say, preparing this report and thinking and looking back, to say that it's been a challenging year would be an understatement. It seems like last summer was many, many years ago. And I want to say that we're really lucky in North Andover to have a great team, a great supportive committee, awesome kids and families that have really adjusted and moved on the fly here as guidance has changed frequently. This has been a year like none in the history of school. So this is informational. At the end of the year, the school committee will put together a summary. And, the first goal was really specific, and some of this has been really specific to COVID, as this has been just a very different year, was to address the challenges related to COVID-19, explore, design, and implement school safety protocols, procedures needed for students and staff to have a successful year. And when you look at some of the key actions, I think the most important one is to continue to oversee the health and safety of the school community with the COVID-19 response team, working with public health, communication to families. And, again, the work that, our parents have done and the, getting feedback, the work of our staff in the Summer Institute with John Dioria has been really amazing. The nursing staff working with public health to create, and work with NADA on the metrics for opening and closing schools. The SEL and mental health support, the different newsletters. I mean, it's really been incredible, but most incredible, I think, has been, putting the things in place to keep our students safe in a time, especially when we had a lot less information last year. It was a really scary time to come back to school for a lot of folks, and appreciate that. The second goal was for the district's leadership team to provide the leadership to support and successfully navigate the challenges of providing a high-quality education during the COVID-19 pandemic and prepare for FY22. So creating a fall reopening plan, as you guys recall, I think we met almost weekly in the summertime, and we were here many evenings, very late. A lot of folks contributed to that in, developing that opening plan and, doing the things we need to do to successfully implement and operationalize it. Just really tremendous work by the staff. And I would just point to, some of the benchmarks, just the surveys folks had filled out, the COVID-19 communications and FAQs and different videos we've done. And I actually believe, what was really important that I didn't mention in the first part is our partnership with the town, not only the Department of Public Health, but working with Melissa Murphy Rodriguez, the town manager, and our relationship to, work together to get the schools what they need and move forward together collaboratively for a longer term plan. I think it's no surprise in the first and second year as being superintendent, we identified that we needed a longer term plan for North Andover and a bigger picture. And this plays really a key role in it as we had a year with COVID. The goal 3, for the 2021 school year, will support a district-wide commitment to social justice and equity for all students and staff. This is really critical. This is work that we've been doing, and I really, here in central office, I really have to thank Lorene Marks, Kristen Ando, our principals for really help lead and guide this work. But this year, the ability to partner with Boston College, and have coaching through them, the professional development for staff, and I've linked the schedules for professional development, and there's some amazing topics there that so many people have participated in. And then the continuation and growth of our Race Amity Club has been remarkable. I think one of the really important changes this year, it's been really awesome, is all of our principals are participating in the district's principal equity course. Using the text, Courageous Conversations About Race has been ongoing. Ms. Marks started a women's leadership group. When you look at the PD calendar and for the fall and winter offerings to date, really important information there that's helpful. And then the data-wise process of really looking at equity, assessment data and the achievement gap that's been ongoing and the training they've done in that. Really critical work. Goal 4 was professional development, and it's been a heck of a year learning how to do new things all the time. We have folks who've been learning how to live stream, how to teach into the hybrid, how to use new technology. Talking back to the access and equity, the ability of working with the town manager and Dr. Mealy to get a device for everybody, new laptops for the staff, has played a real key role. But, again, you can take a look at the fall and winter PD offerings. The annual trainings, not only are mandatory trainings, but, administrative trainings throughout the course of the year, and continuing to get feedback from the staff on what works and what we need to get better in terms of PD. And then talking about a shared goal with the school committee and the superintendent, working with municipal officials, engaging with residents to ensure appropriate and adequate educational facilities and funding to decrease class size and to better meet the needs of all students. Folks, as everyone knows, we've been space challenged for many years. We've had high class size for many years. We've made significant progress on elementary. And I think, really critical is, working with the town manager as she has come on board a few years now, getting the middle school project into the facilities master plan 2. The work of the subcommittee on space capacity that Dr. Mealy and Ms. Lynch talked about before, and continuing to look at every single option possible so that we can continue to create the spaces that kids deserve that are best for kids to learn and teachers to teach. And it's been a collaborative effort across the board. The budget and looking at a longer term plan play into that role and creating those spaces, and that will continue to be ongoing. So I would just highlight those as a few of the key highlights for this year. But I just have to say that I know it hasn't been an easy year as a superintendent. I know it hasn't been an easy year as a dad. I know it hasn't been an easy year for any of our students here in North Andover, Massachusetts. It's incredibly hard to be a parent in this day and age, facing the COVID-19 pandemic. I feel lucky that we have such an amazing team around us, and we're going to continue to work hard every day to provide the best education we can for our kids, and really looking forward to them returning back in person. And at the end of the year, we'll come with a complete update with more information, and the school committee will then have a final evaluation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gilligan. And at the end of the year, we will do our regular evaluation that the state requires, and we'll have an opportunity to give feedback to Dr. Gilligan at that time. So thank you very much for that update. And that brings us to the end of our formal agenda. But there has been acknowledgement already tonight that this is the last time that this particular configuration of 5 sitting members will be together, as Mr. Teresi has decided not to run for re-election. And so we do want to take a few minutes to recognize you, David, for the work that you have done with us and before some of us. So, Dr. Gilligan, you want to jump in?
Sure. I think a couple things. David's been on the committee here for quite some time, and when we talked about, oftentimes I think committee members have got plaques. Thankfully, one of our members reached out to David's wife and found out he has a whole box of plaques. As a state representative, and I don't, they're collecting dust inside that box. So, this is a certificate of recognition to David Teresi and grateful appreciation for his dedication to the students in North Andover, his outstanding performance as a member of the North Andover School Committee from 2014 till present. And I can speak firsthand that, David's commitment, passion to what's best for kids always shines through. So in not getting a plaque, he is going to get a certificate, but more importantly,
Less room in the box.
yeah, I'm not sure, this might not even make the box, it might not make it out of central office, but
Monday morning box.
yeah, the circular file. But David does like to golf, and hopefully he'll have some more time to golf. And so I want to present him with this certificate on behalf of myself and the whole committee. And this is a Scarlet Knights golf umbrella. We know he'll put this to good use. And again, I hope he has that time. We've been lucky to have him, and I couldn't thank him more for what he's done for all of us. So,
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you, Dr. Gilligan.
We'll let her shake hands. Awesome.
And I'm going to recommend you not open that umbrella because it's bad luck inside.
I agree.
You might be stuck with us for another 3 years by mistake. So I do want the members to have an opportunity to say whatever they may want to say at this time, and I would start with Ms. Lynch.
David, the reason I'm sitting here tonight is because of you.
And you hate me because of it.
Well, this term, it was my choice. So now, when I first thought about running, David, on his own volition, reached out to me and invited me out for coffee, and basically threw his support behind me and told me how much he wanted me on the committee and how he would do anything to help me. And I knew nothing about campaigning at the time. And he walked me through it every step of the way and was always there as not just a trusted advisor, but a trusted friend and confidant. And it's been a pleasure working with you. You always say exactly how you feel, and you're honest. No, and that's a quality I admire, because we always know where we stand with you, and you're genuine. And I'm going to miss you, but good luck.
Thank you, Ms. Lynch. Mr. McDevitt?
So I'll just say a couple of quick words. I've known David since I first ran in 2012, and he came on the board, I think, 2015, thereabouts. Definitely have not always agreed with you. That's been clear, I think, at times, and you, not me. But one thing's always been clear, and I think that's your dedication to the town and the community and the kids, and trying to do what is best for this. And so, I don't think you have a life of public service without having the best interests of other people in mind. And so I thank you for that and your friendship.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you, Mr. McDevitt. Ms. Mabley?
Well, it's kind of hard to add to the two speeches I've already made because they covered kind of the whole gamut here. But no, it's you've been an excellent model, Mr. Trissy. My style is probably different from yours, but it doesn't mean that I don't appreciate the passion that you show and the care that you give. And I think that you've shown great leadership in helping us to recognize what things we can push on that, maybe, such as the budget, maybe we're under the impression that we can't really push, but you help to lead that. And I think that's been very important. And I appreciate the energy with which you've served on the committee, and I'll miss having you sit over here. And but I'm sure we'll see you in other ways supporting the schools. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mabley. And I'm just looking at myself, so maybe North Andover Cam could focus on Mr. Teresi. So the first interaction I remember having with David Teresi was way back when we'd had those massive budget cuts that the high school described as being so, detrimental to what we were offering in the program. At that time, the decision was made that all fourth grades across the district would have 38 children in them, and that we would meet fire code. And there was a huge meeting with parents that was held with then State Rep Teresi, looking for some help. And in that meeting, David was great. And the thing that I remember him saying is, the only ones who are going to solve North Andover's problems are North Andover. And I took that to heart, and I thought that was so important. And as you know, from the presentation, we did have an override shortly after that. So David was really instrumental in encouraging us to get over it, unify, get it done. There's work to be done, and stop looking someplace else for answers. You have the answers. They're right here with you. The next important interactions that I had with David was in his first election when I was the campaign manager for his opponent. And I think we gave him a good run for his money. I have always maintained that contested races are good for democracy, and Ms. Mabley would also contest that I like them, they're fun. So when I came on to the committee, David was chair, and I had a lot to learn, and he was very, very helpful to get me up to speed in a little time. He was very accessible, and I've really had a great time serving as vice chair with him last year when we've had so many successes together. So David, this has been fun. Let's keep doing fun things.
Just not here.
David, do you want to say anything?
Yeah, I guess I'll try to say a couple words. I'll get too emotional, but just a lot of thanks to everybody. We thanks my family for dealing with this for the last 6.5 years. I owe it to Andrew. I got appointed halfway through Lori Burzloff's term, and so that's all it all started. But I've served as an elected official for 23 and a half out of the last 25 years in North Andover. So I've been doing this since 1996. That's how scary that is. So I thank my family for their support and the time that they've allowed me to do it. This last 6.5 years has been great. I've known obviously Greg and Jim the longest period of time, but your whole team, I think the world of the whole central office staff, Bev, Cindy, Michelle. I didn't write down any notes here, so if I forget somebody, I apologize. But your whole team down here is fantastic, Greg, and I think North Andover is really blessed to have your leadership with your team. It's been a great working with you guys. My committee here, Andrew, like a brother, lot of fights over the years, but I really respect the work that you do and the passion that you show for the schools. The effort that you put in over the years is incredible. Never so much in the last year with all the negotiations that you went through. So I thank you for that. And Helen, I remember, exactly so many years ago when you were a very active, engaged parent, and I was a state rep. So and working with you the last 3 years, I mean, you definitely have a very unique style to you, but I've grown, very fond of you. I think you are a real treasure to this committee. You've been fantastic to work with. Holly, I don't know what to say. I feel like the first time we were campaigning together, and it was probably like 10 degrees below zero every single Saturday morning. You're probably like, what the hell did I do to get her to do this? But I definitely enjoyed, spending time with TJ and Lauren and you, and holding signs in the bitter cold old center for so many times. But I'm glad you did it. You've been a true advocate for the kids, and I think, again, North Andover is lucky to have you on the committee. And you, my friend, I think I roped you into this too, didn't I?
Yeah, I think you did, yeah. I think I was like second or third choice, but yeah.
No, you've been a good friend for a long time before. We were both on the school committee, some mutual friends that brought us together, and I'm so happy you did this. You've been, I think we've been side by side on so many issues, and there's been a handful of issues that we disagreed upon, but you were, I know you're going to hate this, but you're kind of like my big sister. Kind of give me a little lecture once in a while, and something, not saying most times it's deserved. Every once in a while it wasn't deserved so much, but you are a dear friend. You and Eric, I really cherish your friendship, and I know that, and you have two beautiful daughters, and my kids adore your kids, so I know you're a great mom, and Eric's a great dad, so I'm going to miss you guys. This has been a real experience, been challenging from time to time. I mean, the parents are great most of the time. Sometimes they're a pain in the ass, but I just, love.
This is when I should be lecturing you.
Listen, we have a great community. I love this community. I was born and raised here, and people are very passionate. So I respect that there's disagreement sometimes, but I would just, encourage, first of all, more people to run for office, get involved as an elected official or an appointed official in North Andover. We have a great community here, great people that work for the town, not just here in the school department, but in the town as well. So it's been an incredible adventure for the last 25 years. I think it's over, but you never say never. So looking forward to using this golf umbrella. Hopefully not this weekend. Looks like it's going to be a nice sunny day on Sunday, so maybe we'll hit the links on Sunday. But thank you all again. It's been a trip, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Teresi.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're ready to adjourn unless anybody has anything they want to say to the community at this time. Ms. Lynch?
No comments.
Okay. Mr. McDevitt?
Just excited to see dates on the calendar and kids coming back to school.
And Ms. Mabley?
Agreed. I'm all set. I'm very excited and very thankful to everyone. And Helen and Andrew, I know you've been a part of these negotiations throughout the year, and it's a lot of work, and I thank you and everyone involved.
Thank you. And I would just remind everybody that we are making great strides forward, and we have had great progress in this pandemic, but it is not over, and we need to continue our success for the rest of the school year by paying attention to the 3 W's. Wear your mask, watch your distance, wash your hands. So if we can keep doing that, we should be able to keep going in the right direction. I would entertain a motion to adjourn, and I would imagine that Mr. Teresi might like to make that motion because he hates late meetings.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Teresi, seconded by Ms. Mabley. Assuming there's no discussion, we have a roll call vote starting with Mr. Teresi.
Yes, for the last time.
Ms. Lynch.
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt.
Yes.
Ms. Mabley.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. It is 9:29 on the 18th day of March, 2021, and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.